I am here today with Christy McKinley from McKinley Coaching. And Christy, I'll just take a moment to introduce you and then let you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do.
Okay.
So, Christy McKinley is the owner and CEO of McKinley Coaching. She is a Reiki master teacher and soul care consultant for conscious heart-centered leaders. She is a hospice volunteer, advocate for affordable and accessible mental health care, and is a self-published sci-fi fantasy author. Amazing. Through intuitive-led, Reiki-focused coaching, Christy inspires, uplifts, and motivates energy workers, business owners, and other leaders to do what they love without guilt and with more energy, patience, and time. She also leads workshops and creates Reiki-focused, intuitive-led meditations. And for more information, her website is mckinleycoaching.com. So Christy, thanks so much for joining me today. It's a real pleasure to have you here and be talking with you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, who you work with, and how you serve them?
I love working with energy workers and especially leaders in the energy working field, just because for me, it's an easy language to translate. It's like definitely get it. It's and I also understand and get that it comes understand that we're coming from the same like path, usually the same journey. Lots of times we have a lot of our gifts show up early, and sometimes people, for one reason or another, are just afraid of that, and they show up in their fear, and then it affects us accordingly. But at the same time, as we were speaking earlier, it's such a great teacher. Like the last year and a half has been a great teacher, and so the more I come to understand and embrace that, the more passionate I feel about working with those who just want to feel joy in their lives, feel happiness, and in whatever way that shows up. And being of service is a way of showing up. Just walking to a room or having a conversation or recording a meditation, or and it can be any number of things. And I think a lot of times our old story dictates or drives the narrative that we have to do a certain thing a certain way, and you don't. I think the last year and a half has kind of been proof of that. So many people have been making all these changes, and I love working with people that are like, yes, I want to do this thing, and yes, I understand I'm afraid, but I'm willing to take that chance. I'm willing to give myself that chance, and taking that chance. And so many of us just stay in daydream mode, and I get that. Oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
totally get that. I was there for a very, very long time, and then when I realized that I had given my power away, it was really humbling. Here I am, this person, I'm this Reiki master teacher, I've been doing this work for da 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 da, and I was like, wow. And you have a couple of series of options at that point. You can either just give in to it and let it consume you, and it just drive you in a negative way, and you not learn anything from it. Or you can be like, okay, well, this was not ideal. It took me, and I recognized I saw lots of signs ahead of time. And just the more I share my story, the more people are like, yes, I've done that, I get it. So that's who I love serving. People who are just like, yes, I hear your story. And I'm really excited about today, just because, between the time you asked me and now, I was just like really excited about sharing my story and being more open, because I hadn't done that before, really to this degree. And today I just kind of would like to share on that. And if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to message me if you don't, if you're watching this recording later. But it's just like, one of the things from my childhood was this, like, I love my mom so very much. And but she, like, she was raised as a single mom, and so for a while her narrative was um it was not super supportive. But you just, in that experience, just the gratitude of having a loving parent that did her best and forgiveness for myself for how I wanted her to show up.
Mhm.
Because it is when I forgave myself and was willing to even begin down that path, miracles appeared. And so I encourage that that type of self-care, because that's raw. That's beyond mani-pedis. That's beyond yoga. Yoga and mani-pedis are like the steps before that, because it allows you to be in a more receiving space. But it's just the rawness of that realization that's just like, wow, I have this opportunity to change and show up and be a beacon of light for others. Because the more I tell the story, the more comfortable I feel, because there's so much confirmation. Thank you for that confirmation. Thank you for allowing me this space to share that. Um, because I get to have these conversations. Because for the longest age, these were taboo, mental health and just our emotional well-being and body positivity. And I love that the conversation has just blossomed so beautifully in so many powerful directions.
Absolutely. There's so many gems in what you said there, acknowledging the past as not any sort of problem or even something bad, but as a true, genuine acknowledgement, and
Yeah.
having that deep understanding so that you can do that, unglamorous self-care. Like you
Hmm.
said, the glamorous mani-pedi, the nice things that bring you in touch with yourself and you are doing something good for yourself. But
Yeah.
that self-care work is not always easy.
Yes.
And being able to find that place of acknowledgement, of forgiveness for
Mhm.
yourself and others is really a powerful step to moving forward and kind of stepping into our own power, taking charge of our own life, and realizing that it's not necessarily that person's fault. That's where they were on their journey. If it was somebody that you had some kind of relationship or connection with in your past, but then coming into ownership of yourself and realizing that ultimately we control our own lives and make our own decisions. And we can have that discernment to know the things that happened in our past maybe helped us to learn what is good for us now. And so we don't have to continue those patterns, but we can use it as a place of basis for making our judgments and decisions to move forward.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And even to the I would admit there's probably maybe one person that comes to mind that I struggle with forgiving, but then in that I can forgive myself for not forgiving them and still be will and still create an opening for still work to do. So I so choose. I just wanted to offer that as well too, because I would love to forgive. Sometimes people do things that are pretty hard to forgive. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to, I just felt like I just had to add that for sometimes.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Forgiveness is not easy, and
Yeah.
sometimes it can take a day, sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes years to get to that place
Absolutely.
where we can truly forgive. And we're not just saying the words, but we have this deep forgiveness to them and for them that we can offer,
Mhm.
where we're not harboring any resentment, but we can honor them and their efforts and know that maybe there just was some misalignment. It wasn't necessarily anything intentional, but just, a situation that didn't work at the time. And I think those difficult people can be some of our greatest teachers, really,
Mhm.
where we can learn about others, we can learn about ourselves. And sometimes that's where the really great realizations and revelations can come from.
Oh, yes. The Dalai Lama calls it your sacred friend.
I love that.
Yes. He's just like the ones that push your buttons that get you to kind of, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I love that. Because and that actually helped to create, I listened to that. I heard that statement just as I was at a place where I had to view someone as like, oh, they're my sacred friend. They're pushing my buttons. They're forcing me to look at something inside myself. Okay. And then it became easier to just handle how they were showing up. Um, so yeah,
Sure.
sacred
Yeah,
friend.
when we look for the little hidden lessons, I think
Hmm.
we can handle a situation with a very different approach. We might
Hmm.
be more open to, what is being revealed to us in that situation.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes us out of ourselves a little bit and maybe looking at it from a more balanced perspective too.
Mm, yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Tell us a little bit about soul care, because that might be an unfamiliar term to some people listening.
Oh, okay. Um, I considered myself like a self-care coach for like many years, and like, over the last year, I kind of thought about it. I was just like, soul care, self-care felt more true to how I was feeling versus self-care. Self-care, it was like a stepping stone. It was like the mani-pedi or the yoga, to the deep raw work. Um, and so I was like, soul-care just felt just a deeper part of the process that felt like it was more the truth than self-care, because when I realized what I was doing, I was just like, wow, I am, through the energy work, it's like at a soul's level, it's an energetic level. And then, I just thought, well, while I'm transforming the self-care part, it's like, let's look at this coach part. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with the word coach. It's just like consultant felt more like, as this person, from the perspective of this person, I'm going to suggest some things based on my experience and my knowledge. And then you're a grown adult. Let's talk through what some options are for you that light you up. That felt like what consultant more so was for me than like coach. So it was like, from the deepest level, I'm going to hold space for you and provide information and knowledge, and then you get to decide, you get to create, which I love all of that. All of that
Mhm.
is just lovely, and it's empowering, and it's just and for me it feels like ease, peaceful in a sense that it feels effortless. That it feels like my nature when I'm in the space of doing energy work, when I'm communicating, and sharing what I am and what I do. It just feels just like the lungs or the air in my lungs. It's very just breathful, and so I I love communicating with others on that level, just so I can help them see what it is that I can tell just in our interactions about how the potential for them to show up in a powerful, wonderful way for them.
Right.
And that requires trust and clear communication and integrity, and me showing up that way so you feel comfortable enough to share what spirit has for you in mind, to come up at that time. And it's I'm sort of paraphrasing Louise Hay when she was like, introducing a group of speakers at one of her summits. She was saying, everyone's going to be kind of saying the same thing, but you're going to hear it in a different way. And in that, if like you're hearing, like when someone's watching this, or whether live or recording, and something that we're talking about triggers in something for like maybe the fifth time that day or week or whatever, to follow that sign, to notice that, if you're ever wondering if like, if you are a clear, communication to spirit, yes, if you're seeing those signs, then you are. Lots of times we second guess ourselves, which is completely valid. We live in a society that's slowly shifting to, positive messages and empowering messages, and that transition is like basically ugly bangs transition. It's like, what am I going to do, this is crazy, and you want to lop them off, but it'd look weird for like a couple of weeks. And so, just figuring out, how to show up best for ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. How do you think someone could know if they are needing self care or soul care, some of that deeper energy work? Do you have any process, or does it depend on the experiences that they're working with?
I think it depends on the experiences that they're working with. I think it's what they're willing to do in
Mm.
the direction of self-care, because some people, don't really like being touched, so massages wouldn't really be a thing, or maybe don't like their feet touched, so making, I've suggested making a list of things that you would enjoy doing as far as self-care, from like the free, the cheap, and or on up. That way, if you have like maybe 15 minutes, you can do a meditation or something like that. um, it's Yeah, the time, what you're interested in doing, and then just try out a couple of things, in just 21 days. um, what I have noticed is when I do like super simple things and not load my morning routine down with a bunch of stuff, just like simple things and, water and meditation, that's good. And being kind to yourself when you wake up one morning, you're just like, I don't want to meditate. Just being okay with that. Like some days you don't feel like it. Some days you don't feel like getting up and working out, even though it's been on your schedule every Wednesday for like the last 3 months. Sometimes your body is saying, hey, take a break, being willing to be flexible. And um, it was so many options, but I think lots of times we get overwhelmed because we have so many options. Just start small. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be wild and crazy and completely vanilla and boring.
Right, right.
Yeah.
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 Sometimes that's what we need. If we
Yes.
are feeling so overscheduled and
Yes.
overwhelmed, the self-care can just be simply sitting and breathing or,
Yes.
just being still, like you said, drinking water,
Yes.
and trying to not give ourselves a long self-care to-do list so that
Yes.
we create more overwhelm and anxiety.
Yeah.
And like you said, that self-forgiveness is important. And I think a lot of us might tend to be very busy, and we need to really try to stay manageable in our expectations and really realize, is this schedule that I have doable for myself, or do I need to give myself a break here?
Mhm.
And letting that be okay to give yourself a break,
Oh,
because if we tend to be so hard on ourselves, that's fueling some perfectionism, maybe a negative sort of mindset, and that goes completely against self-care and soul care. So staying
exactly.
aware of ourselves really makes a difference.
Yeah. And it's, it tends, and I've noticed from my experience, it tends to lengthen the process to have the transformation from the lesson involved. Um, when I put up resistance, when I thought, oh, I could just do this workaround and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, it's exhausting and it's not fun. And then you're just really cranky towards yourself and everyone else. Just being in a s- being in a space of to safely like unpack stuff is beautiful. Like I cannot stress therapy or coaching or even a yoga class with like 5 other people. It's just something that's your safe space to just unpack. It doesn't have to be the all of the entire luggage. It can be your carry on, little carry on, just to let just exhale and let it go. um because the little things that we do for ourselves just gradually throughout the day mean mean the world for ourselves because it allows us to stay present and to stay calm. And I I'm grateful that I get that. I'm grateful that I get to say that. I'm like, oh yeah, me too. Thank you for the confirmation. I'm like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And I love that there's communities where it's just like just of support in general, just showing up for each other, not doing anything particularly magical other than just being our normal magical selves. Just showing up and being. Uh, but I think for a lot of us, it's just we have to get through like a lifetime of like story and just remember that we are powerful, loving beings. Um, we we belong simply because we're here, and it's all good, no matter what you presently might be thinking.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, at the essence of who we have this goodness in us. And the things that happen, our experiences, how we interpret them, those are, like you said, the stories that sometimes can affect and dictate how we are.
Yeah.
But when we can come together in a community and really connect with others in a safe space to truly be seen and heard, sometimes those stories start to fall away and we can almost let our guard down a little bit. Maybe it is processing something that was emotional that happened, maybe it was earlier today, maybe it was farther in the past, but having those safe spaces to process our experiences, to talk through them, and being in a community, like you said, where you know it's okay and it's going to maybe feel difficult and uncomfortable, but those people are still going to see you and hear you and be with you for who you are at your true essence. They're not trying to, harbor any kind of judgment or negativity toward you. So I think it's really important that we do find those spaces and create those spaces for ourselves. Sometimes it's with groups, sometimes it's with coaching and therapy. But I think that's a really key element to working through our past in whatever form it is so that we can start to move forward with our life. Because I think sometimes we might be holding on to things and we don't even realize we are, or we don't realize, the effect of one comment many years ago and how that's shaping our current reality.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I've thought back on so many situations when like a particular emotion would come up and I'm like, why am I feeling that? And then, either meditating or, just sitting with it, and I was just like, oh wow, I completely forgot about that. Because our safety system likes to kick in during those kind of stressful times, and I was like, holy crap, and just looking at it again, I was like, as an adult, I'm like, oh wow, and then just something just feels like it shifts, and then you're cool. It's like you observe it, and it's like it's totally shifted, and you're like, huh, okay, well, that was a memory of something that wasn't fun, and apparently something I'm apparently complete with it because I can objectively observe it now, which is like, oh, wow, thank you. It's usually like,
Yeah,
thank you.
right,
Yeah,
right.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, we can sometimes see how time and space makes a big difference when we
Yes.
revisit something.
Yes.
And, sometimes the emotion isn't quite there anymore, or maybe it's different and new. And just
Mhm.
having that new lens can in itself be healing because, like you said, you can acknowledge it and look at it and be like, okay, that's how that worked. So now I could make a different choice or, move on in a different way. So
Yes.
I think all those experiences are valuable, and it's, even the tough things we can still learn from and grow from.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. If someone wants to work on their self-care and soul care habits, or maybe dive into even the soul care work deeper, what is a good place to get started with some of that?
Well, I offer distance Reiki sessions. If you just like to get to know a little bit more about me before you book a session, you just feel free to sign up on my website. I have meditations that are kind of short, and I kind of intentionally kind of had them short just so they're just different, associated with different chakras. If you'd like to kind of experience my work that way, and just use your own intuition, and I may not be the person that, maybe a little bit of time, honor that. I strongly encourage, folks to honor that. Um, and just sit with yourself and just see what comes up for you. Yeah, and
Hmm.
you can always go to my website to reach out to me or book a session or anything. Um, just that'll be my ask. That'll be my ask. It's like just sit and listen to your intuition and see what it tells you, and it might show up at as an like an image or a song, or a relative might show up. Just so I think practicing that means a lot, in that you're honoring your intuition, you're honoring your gut feelings and your body's reactions and your connection to source and the energy around you. And I think anytime we can be in the practice of that is well worth the effort. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Our intuition is always there. And I think we get used to pushing it aside and maybe not paying attention so much.
Yeah.
But like you said, your body's giving you these signs, and the gut feeling, that gut reaction that we have, or kind of that internal excitement if something seems really good and great, something we're looking forward to.
Hmm.
And I think, even honing our intuition is a practice in itself. But generally, the things that feel good and make us feel good can be a sign of how we're cultivating our intuition. And if it's feeling good, maybe you want to keep doing it. But always remembering that, like, we are our own best teachers.
Mhm.
And especially if we have had some kind of life struggles, we might start to look to other people and start to lose that trust in ourselves. But ultimately, we know what is best, even if it feels a little challenging sometimes. And there's different practices to even do to hone your intuition and start to listen to that inner voice a little bit deeper. So I love that you touched on intuition, because that's something that, it's a tool that everybody has, really.
Yeah.
And sometimes we end up looking to others, but intuition's part of our own power. And when we can cultivate that inner voice, the more empowered we can become to trust ourselves more.
Absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to really kind of be focusing on like my intuition in regards to like tapping into like my sacral chakra, with the, creativity. I've been really embracing that more so lately and like listening to my intuition and just all the ideas and things that are coming up. So um, it's, I love that I'm feeling more comfortable with my intuition just because for the longest time I did. And then, when you're a kid, you have all these, experiences where, you either were told to not use this part of yourself or just some experience witnessing others where you're afraid to use it for fear of the same repercussions. And now that it's like I'm tapping more purposely back into that, I'm just like, wow, this feels fun, this feels good, and I'm using it in a way that is sustaining, and it's just like, wow, this is, and in that, as you were sharing, it's just feeling empowered, and it's just, oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah, creativity as a form of self expression is liberating.
Hmm.
And I know when I was young, I was not very good at art, but I really associated creativity with art. So I just thought, well, I'm not creative.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
as I've gotten older, I started to see creativity in different forms. And maybe it's cooking, or maybe it's, doing yoga, moving on my yoga mat, and maybe it's writing, journaling. There's just so many forms to express ourselves. And, different things, again, will feel good to different people. But once we start to tap into our creative voice, that freedom comes when we can show ourselves in, whatever that is: food, art, music, literature, whatever, journaling. And I think that it builds on itself too. So after working on creativity a little bit, you might start to get some sudden inspiration, and maybe you find yourself more interested in taking on new projects and doing things that you didn't really imagine too. So that's a really nice link between creativity and intuition.
Yeah, thank you. That's a more recent aha. So I was like, yeah, because it's because I think a lot of times a lot of us like grow up in practical households where, the running joke was like, oh, you got a liberal arts degree, and it's just like, no, there are people that or don't I always felt weird about that. I was like, why would you make fun of someone getting anyway? But
Right.
it's just I just like that doesn't even make any sense. Like they still go to school. But it's just, again, we're slowly coming out of this old story of, you got what, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week, that, 2.5 kids. And we know that's not true. So a lot of us are like, holy crap, I don't have a point of reference. And like in just God, being able to like just create a life. And that's when I do my goals, I usually start out with like how I want to feel and then kind of adjust to what I'm doing and then connecting that. Like what I'm doing is that connected to any of the feelings on this list. And I think 4 months in, it's a pretty good goal list. It's pretty good goals, and they're exciting and they feel good and they're empowering. But yeah, I think tapping into more how we feel and in our intuition, it's like, yay, I'm home, but I was always here because we're never separate. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you start with how you feel. That's such an intentional way of being, and at grounding with how you want to feel as your starting point too, because
Yes.
You know, chances are most of us don't want to feel scattered and anxious and, you know, the way we often feel going
Yeah.
throughout our day. So when we
Yeah.
can tap into that feeling and then build everything else around that, you know, then we're focusing on the feeling and not so much all of our tasks and to-do lists or accomplishments, but really staying more connected to ourselves throughout the day and, you know, longer term as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And also in that, when you're focusing on how you feel, you're not attached to how it looks. So
Mhm.
whenever it shows up, however it shows up, you just and you have that feeling, you're just like, ah,
That's
yes, thank you.
beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
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 I'm sure it makes you more present with the journey too, because you're
Yes.
not so goal or like achievement focused. You're
Mhm.
more being in the process all along the way and that feeling that you have with the process.
Yes, definitely. And when you're writing your goals and you can like make adjustments and just that, perpetuating that, that feeling of, oh, I can always make adjustments.
Right.
Like the GPS, I think they said it's like incorrect 97% of the time. They have to actually have humans calibrating it so we actually can get to where we're going, you
Oh, yeah.
know? So it's wrong. It's out of alignment. 97, this very tech specific thing that's been in our lives for like what, gosh, maybe the last 20, 30 years. And like it
Mhm.
needs human beings to keep it. So we should probably, okay, not should. It would be a good idea if we could show ourselves any kind of grace. Because I mean, we're constantly learning until we leave these bodies. So you might as well
Definitely.
just sharpen your pencils, kids. You're going to be here for a bit,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And get your erasers to course correct because
exactly.
we
Exactly.
don't want to write our plans in pen, but
This
keeping
is a
our,
powerful tool. Oh, I don't
yeah,
mean a brand whiteout, sorry. Oopsies.
right, right. It's true. You know, giving ourselves that forgiveness along the way is so key. And, you know, trying to step away from that mindset of being hard on ourselves and giving ourselves the freedom to explore because not everything we try will be perfect the first time, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that we are a failure or there's anything bad about ourselves. It's just not a right fit.
Yeah.
And like you said, if the technology can course correct and realign, surely we can too as humans. The technology is relying on humans, so we can course correct for our own lives too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, that
Yeah.
seems like a great place to kind of come full circle, talking back onto our self forgiveness aspect. Such a
Mm.
great point to end on.
Oh.
So, actually, before we end, is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation or touch on? And I do want to give people an opportunity to find you online too. So, if you'd want to talk about any good places to connect with you, that would be wonderful.
Okay. Well, I have a Facebook public page that I can post a link here in a second. I'm on Instagram. I have a self-care community that Courtney is a part of, or a self-care community, and just posting, links and engaging, asking conversations. I've been a little quiet there the last little bit, but it's always a space for anyone to kind of share anything that's, self-care related or anything like that, ask any questions. And I like to think I kind of keep it a, kind of an intimate space to like, safe sharing and good vibes.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Thanks for our talk today. And we'll be sure to add the links to your group and your website in the chat here so that anyone can connect if they're interested. Great. Thanks so much, Christy. Thanks
Oh,
for listening, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
bye.